Jenna Kutcher is a well-known marketing professional and entrepreneur. She's the host of the top-rated podcast, Gold Digger, a live workshop-style business podcast helping thousands redefine success and chase bold dreams. And her online marketing workshops help entrepreneurs worldwide. On her journey, she's built a successful company, developed a thriving brand, and has created a beautiful family. Jenna argues that there is a fulfilled life to be found outside of the tried cliche of having it all. And with her new book, How Are You Really?, she takes everything she's learned to demystify for readers the steps to take to create their truly fulfilled lives. It all starts with asking that simple question and finally getting to the answer. I'm so excited to finally welcome Jenna Kutcher, a dear friend and someone I look up to so much to the podcast.
Hello.
Hey, girlfriend.
How are you?
Fun. You're an
Oh my gosh.
author.
Isn't this wild? This is so wild.
It's amazing. I'm proud of you.
I was thinking about you because I made a smoothie yesterday and Coco's like, it's the Fab Four. Like, of course it is, Eddie.
I might love her.
Well, we love your protein powder. And so she like every day she'll mix in like chia flax and got to get the greens. I'm like,
oh my
so
God.
funny.
It's so cute. What a ritual to have with your kids.
Isn't it wild? And she loves smoothies. So it's like, it's just so funny. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you? I feel like when I was thinking about you this morning, I was like, pretty sure when I interviewed you for my podcast, you were super pregnant with Bash, like about to get, you were on a ball. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I was full on sitting on a birthing ball at the end of our table, like just being like, here we go.
Isn't that crazy? Now we both have 2 kids. It's wild.
It is really wild. And it's just really special to see like how kids, I feel like, give you tunnel vision to change your life. And I mean, first of all, congratulations on the book. It's a beautiful read. And I knew it was going to be just because everything you put out on the on Instagram and on the internet, it feels so authentic and it feels like, man, you get a lot done. And I want to kind of uncover or like unearth some of like how you do it and like how you get the support system to do it. But yeah, it's really good, Jenna.
So crazy.
It's really full of heart and really, but actionable too, which I think is really important for people. Cause it's one thing to be like, here's how I did it.
Yeah. Be inspired.
But, like you brought in some neuroscience. You mean like, I'm like, let's talk about identity foreclosure.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Cost fallacy, because you've changed your life so many times. And really, I think you stay so inspired because you are following your intuition and really
100%
changing
alignment. Yes. Isn't it wild? I feel like I've lived 8 million lifetimes and done 8 million things, but then I'm like, they all work out. And I feel like it'd be easy for somebody to be like, oh, well, they only work out because she's like lucky. And it's like, no, they work because I'm in alignment, whatever direction I'm going in. So.
Well, let's talk about that. We'll jump right in. I'll probably keep this fun little intro combo because it's just like,
it's so good. And that's the thing too, is like people change when you hit record and it's like, no, this is it. This is us.
This is still the podcast. All right. Producer Cody, just keep this part in. Okay. And I'll just do an intro after, but I want to dive into your new book. I'm holding it in my hand. It's already has like folded earmarked pages. How are you really living your truth? One answer at a time. It comes out in like a week and some change, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're in the pre-order stage. It's almost here, but it is such a good read, Jenna. Like, you broke it up into 3 parts. Who are you really, who you have and who has you, and what are you going to do about it? And I think you walked us through your story, but really like what you've learned and how to come into alignment, to how to have deeper conversations with yourself and the people around you, to ask for help, to know that you're on the right path and to trust it, and to silence the negativity in your own brain and the negativity that comes into your DMs. Like, leave me alone.
All of it.
It's not about you. So like, can we start at the beginning of your story? Like, you have this massive following online. You have a beautiful husband, 2 beautiful children, a beautiful life, and you have a beautiful body and a beautiful heart that you have so much so more self-love than I think some clients that I have that people have aspirational goals for or whatever it may be. Like
Yeah.
you are so grounded and so present, and it's an honor to watch. And I aspire to have some of your like just obvious like love for yourself and your kids and your family and your goals. And I just could gush about you because you needed to write this book.
Yeah.
So I'm like walking in circles about it, but it's been beautiful to watch. So it didn't start that way.
Yeah. And it hasn't always been that way either.
So let's go back to the beginning, because I think there are a lot of people that are probably in a place of self-doubt and beating themselves up and being hard on themselves. Like, where did it start for you?
Yeah. It's really interesting. And thank you for all of that, because I agree. When I think about my life right now, I feel like so many people are asking me like, how are you really? And I'm like, oh, I have to answer truthfully. And it's wild how you said, I have so much love that like, I literally feel stretched thin only because I love everything so much. And, I think that when we look at our lives and we look at like all of the different times that we've landed and arrived somewhere and it didn't feel the way we expected it to, a lot of times we're prone to blame ourselves. I should be happier. I'm grateful. Why does this not feel good? Why am I not happy? Something is clearly wrong with me. I'm clearly broken. And I feel like we've gotten it so twisted, especially as women, where we have to walk through life with so many caveats of like, I'm having a hard day, but I'm so grateful. And I know I'm so lucky and all these things. It's like, when you are in real relationship with people, there should be zero caveats needed. And I feel like this book is a response to this caveat driven world of like, we know how fortunate we are. We know how blessed we are. But if you're not happy right now, if you don't feel successful, if you don't love yourself, then there's more to unpack here. And that's like the difference between asking somebody like, how are you? Good, busy, fine, and like leaning in and offering them a safe space to hold their real response when you ask them, how are you really? So when I look at my past and when I think about like my journey to writing this book, so much of it is rooted in this idea of alignment and this permission to change and evolve as a human being. And I have lived many lifetimes in my career. I've lived many lifetimes in my life as a whole. But I feel like I've always had this like little flame inside of me that like signals like, okay, you got to move or you got to change. Like this is who you were, but you're not this person anymore. And I've had to like consistently give myself permission to change and grow and evolve. And so I look at these things in my life, whether it was when I was a gymnast and the way I felt in my leotard, to when I landed the corporate gig and like didn't want the 5-year plan they were giving to me, or when I hit 6 figures as an entrepreneur and felt so burnt out that I promised myself I couldn't do that anymore. I feel like the conversation really these days should be like, if things aren't okay, that's okay. But like, how do we start moving in a way that doesn't just look good, but feels good?
I mean, it truly, especially as an entrepreneur, you have control over your day and how you build your life. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And you shed light on that. It's like, you are building your life and you have to be in alignment and you have to be passionate about it. You can't always do it by yourself. And you need to realize how to create the structure to have and live every single day so that you're keeping that flame alive inside of each of you, each of us.
Yeah.
So back in the beginning, you hired someone from your church to take pictures of you in a pumpkin patch for your engagement photos.
Oh my God. I'll just send you some of these to include in your show notes.
Okay, great. I'd love to have a few. It lit a little spark in you that you listened to. Like, you were excited about photography. How, was it, when you think back, did it feel like a big decision or did it feel like a little decision?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So at the time, it was 2010. I was planning my wedding to my husband, Drew. and we were on a budget. And when I say budget, I mean, we served pizza at our wedding to 200 guests. Okay. Like people say budget, I mean, budget. And so, this girl who was in my youth group, so I was a youth group leader in the church. She had a camera and she was very creative and artsy fartsy. And so like, Amanda, will you take our pictures? Well, anyways, simultaneously, this is pre-Pinterest. This is when there were very few wedding blogs, and the only wedding blogs that existed were all featuring like weddings in California. We live in Minnesota. I can't relate to these vineyards. Okay.
Green wedding shoes.
Yes. And so anyways, I was working my corporate job at the time, and I have always been a creative person, but somewhere on the path, like when I even look at like college and my ambitions there, I had gotten less creative and more linear. Like I'm going to, get the business degree. I'm going to double major and minor in 4 years flat. I'm going to do all of these things that like look successful and that sound successful and that prove that I'm successful. And I, somewhere in that, I lost like my creative side, like the side that like loved to like create just for the sake of creating, doodle, my notebooks in college were like works of art because I would just doodle the whole time. And so anyways, weeks later, there's a Craigslist ad for a camera. And I was like, oh, like we can't afford to hire a photographer for this whole process of planning the wedding, but I love documenting things. Like I was always the kid at the college parties with like the wind up Kodak cameras, like waiting for Walgreens processing days. Like I was that person. I've always loved photos. And so I bought this $300 camera, just wanted to teach myself so that we could document like my bridal shower and the DIY projects I was making for the budget wedding. Yeah. And I like finally felt creative again. It was like I had stepped outside of the windowless office of like the corporate job. And I was like sleeping with my camera on my nightstand, challenging myself to learn how to use it, whether it was dark out or light out. Like I was so inspired again. I was like so excited to like edit the photos I took and use like Picnic, this like terrible software with awful filters. And like, I was just so on fire again. And I think it like lit this spark of like, no, your creativity isn't in ashes. Like there was just this tiny ember that you are now fanning and it's turning into a flame, but it never started out as like a business ambition. It was like, I just want to document our lives. And then people started like, I would bring my camera everywhere. It was like this like co-pilot on the journey of life. And people would start asking me to take pictures. And then somebody said, I'll pay you $50 to get a picture of my cat. And I was like, okay. And I remember getting paid and I was like, wait, you can actually like make money doing what you love. And so that was really the start of like everything entrepreneurial in me, but it was never a part of the plan. I never went to, photography school or took an art class. I did all of this while working my awful job and built now what you see today. There's just a lot of iterations in the last decade. So there's no overnight success. It's over decade success.
Right. But it's amazing because it wasn't ever the plan. It was the passion.
Never. Yes.
So
yes.
Do you think that served you, that it wasn't a plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny, Kelly, that nobody realizes even to this day is that every single thing that you see me doing now, whether it was my podcast or courses or writing this book, it started as a side hustle. Every single thing that I do now today as a career started as an experiment, as a, let's just try this and see how it feels. Let's see if this is as fun as I think it's going to be. I have always been 1 foot in, 1 foot out in my life because I know that I need safety and security financially and just like peace of mind wise before I can go all in on something. And I think that we've lost this deep respect for people who are willing to experiment and try things and to do that without having budgets, timelines, money involved. It's like, as creative people, the minute a timeline or money gets involved, our creativity is squashed. And so I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, like if there is something that you're thinking about trying, do it with as little stakes as possible, because then you have the invitation thing, but maybe I'll try this next thing. And I think our culture has lost this idea of experimenting because we're so quick to say that's a success or that's an awful failure,
Oh, I feel like you're preaching to the choir because it was like Be Well by Kelly was a 3-year side hustle before I took it full time.
Yes.
And even like my protein powder, when I launched it, like people are like, oh, you need to get investors and you need to do like this type of branding. And it
You're
needs
like,
to
I don't
be like
want to
this. And I
answer to
was like,
anybody.
I don't even know if I want to have a product company. I just am
Yeah.
missing. I like just know what good protein tastes like. And like, I just need a minute to figure out if I can like source exactly what I want. And then I'm going to make a small batch. And then my wedding designer, like my invitation designer did our bags the first round. And like, I'm now finally doing a rebrand, but it's like to have someone invest in you, to have timelines, to have stakes, to want percentage of sales, to like, whatever the case may be.
Then you become an employee of your work.
I don't want that. And
yes,
you have literally done this in your business where you've had this little side hustle, given it a try, put a little bit of energy into it, see how it feels, and it's blown up. Or you've decided. So let's talk about the things that surprised you in your career. We'll get into the juicy goosey, like how are you really stuff. But like, I am so inspired by, I mean, the fact that you have gone from being in a place where you were so budgeted for your wedding and a corporate career, checking all the boxes, to all of a sudden having this massive business. Like, I think we need to be unapologetic about like the financial success that you've created, generational success that you've created for your daughters, for your family, the security you've created for your parents, whoever the case may be. Like, to be able to own that, like you need to own that. And like, I'm so proud of you. Like, what does that look like? Like, what steps did you take when you say like, I experimented? Like, what did you experiment with first? And how did you start creating financial success there?
Do you want to hear some of the failure experiments?
All of it. Like, because those failures are important too, but like, because I think people just see like, oh, look at everything she did. It just like turned to gold. Like, let's talk about the trajectory.
Constantly reminded. So my mom recently retired, and she was like cleaning out her work computer, and she found like my personal budget that I had emailed her like decades ago, like being like, here's exactly how much money I'm spending on cable and cell phone bills and like all these things. I don't know why I needed my mom to see this, but she would send it back to me as just like a reminder, you once lived here. Like, this is incredible. And I agree. It's really fascinating, Kelly, because I think for women who have achieved a level of wealth or success, it's this total double standard in the business world where it's like the men are like showing their private jets and like the fast cars and all these things. And that's aspirational. But for women, you're told like, I miss the old you, or I miss like the old mac and cheese, like whatever. And it's like, but don't you want to see that growth and that evolution as like painting the possibility for you? And I think for sometimes it's really this mindset of like, oh, you know, if she did this, it means I can't, instead of seeing it as like, if she did this, it's literally paving the way for me to do the same. So just want to shout that out, because I think there's a massive double standard when it comes to like women and success. And it's like our first tendency to belittle our life's work to not make other people feel uncomfortable, which is interesting. Do you agree?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's crazy. Like,
it's crazy.
It's been 10 years for me in this business now. And it's interesting, the stuff I didn't share along the way in Instagram of like, this is my crappy apartment that's rent controlled with brown cabinets and green granite. And I'm not going to do videos here because I don't have the white kitchen and the white cabinets. And so you're not like, I didn't really show the trajectory of my business and like how much Chris and I shared a car for years, and like, it was like a beat down Tacoma, and like to come to this place where like, yeah, we have the cars that we wanted, and we're building, you know, not building, it's a tract home, but we're like remodeling a home and there I go again, like belittling, like
we do it all the time.
Years.
Yes.
In the making to then, but like, it is really interesting. And now it's like, I want to share that, like, I've created boundaries, that I have time with my children. But if it's a Tuesday at 12 o'clock, I'm like, I'm not going to do a story of playing at the park with my kid on a Tuesday at 12. I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I'm a full-time business owner, and I'm the breadwinner in my family. Like, it makes it look like I have an easy life. And it's like, there were so many days that it was like, not like that like, why would I have guilt around sharing that I've created a life of flexibility? Why is it so crazy?
It's really interesting. Well, And it's fascinating. Like when I look at things that are like quote failures, like, so let me name off a few, because I'm sure your listeners are like, okay, what did you do that actually didn't work? So far, all we've seen is things that work. So one summer I did senior grad portraits, and my sister is 6 years younger than me. So all of her friends were graduating. I was like, oh my gosh, you can make like hundreds of dollars and shoot for like an hour. It was a nightmare. The moms were the worst clients ever. It wasn't about the kids. It was the moms and their expectations for these senior portraits. Hated it. Did it for one summer. Never did it again. I led a mastermind, which honestly was one of the best things I've ever done in my entire career. 25 women for an entire year. It was a really steep investment for a lot of them, but it was so energetically draining because I felt so personally responsible for helping every single person earn back their investment and tenfold. And for me, like that energy was just like, I can't expound that every year.
Yeah.
I spoke on stages for a while and then said, nope, not again. And now I'm actually going back into it, which is really funny because, it's this invitation of like, we can change our minds. And so it was really funny because, my friend Ed Milet recently launched a book, and he was like, I know you say no to everything, but I'm doing this big event. Will you come speak? And it was my first time in 4, 5, maybe 6 years of like speaking on a stage in front of people, just because everything has been so digital. And I loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I said yes to this, because I would have just kept saying no, not realizing like I've changed. In the book, I write about how I had this watercolor print shop where I sold mugs and prints. It still exists to this day. But I stopped sharing it. That served me for a while, and then alignment shifted, and, it just kind of phased out. And so, it's really interesting because I think, like you were saying, Cal, like nowadays, nobody wants to show up in the middle. We all want to be like the before and after. We're all thinking in 15-second reels of like, here was my before, and now look at where I am. And it's like, what's so much more inspiring is being like, here's the process. Here's what nobody else is showing you. Here's what the reality looks like to have this sort of freedom. Here's where I messed up. Here's where I failed. And so it's really interesting because I do think that there is this gap in our world of like, nobody wants to be at the starting line anymore, and nobody wants to show the middle of the race.
Right. And I feel like you've shared a lot of your life through the middle. And that's what's been such a success. And I think in growing your audiences is the story. Like people want to be along for the ride, and you've allowed them to come along for the ride, and you've shared ways to, grow your business, love your body, build boundaries, and have, like be an active participant in creating your life. I remember following along, and one day you were like, we have a condo in Maui or in Hawaii, and we have decided that this is where we're going to be spending our lives. And you've just decided. And I think that's just like so powerful intention. And then having a trajectory towards that goal. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is for you in your life to set these goals and then have a plan to make them happen?
Yeah. You just said it. When I was writing my book, I asked my editor, I'd like gone through. So I wrote my first manuscript, wrote a business book, didn't tell anyone about it, didn't have a book deal or anything. I did it like, because I recognize as a creative person, the minute like deadlines and money get involved, my creativity is gone. So I was like, if I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write it just for me first. Wrote a business book, totally pivoted it, because I'm like, you know what? Entrepreneurship for me is the part of my philosophy that allows me to build this life. But I truly believe that anyone can like wake up to their lives, regardless of if they stay at home with their children or have a 9-to-5 or work, in a traditional office setting. And so we like widen the lens on the whole book. But when I finally asked my editor, I said, why me? Like, why did you choose me? Why this book? Why do you believe in this so much? And she said something to me that I will never forget. And we kind of wove it into the book itself. And she said, nowadays, specifically for ambitious women, there are 2 camps. It is either the hustle harder, wake up earlier, never say no, always be available, that side of things, or the like manifest, like, just say what you want for your life and the universe will give it to you. And she goes, you live in the middle. You live where the woo meets the work. You hold these visions. You dream so big, but you also make sure that the life you're living is exemplary of what it is that you want. Like you are showing up and becoming the person that is deserving of these things, and your actions are aligned with the vision. And I loved that because I do think, kind of what we've been talking about is like, everything is so black and white these days. Everything is so polarizing. Like just be a mom and you'll learn how polarizing things like how you feed your kids or how you sleep train, or like, I mean, the world is like just waiting to pounce.
Oh
and so
God,
it's like, especially for like women who are ambitious, who like have these bigger, bolder visions for your life. It's like, how are you doing the work to be the type of person that can live that sort of life? And there's this beautiful story in the book. Do you know Erin Treloar, Raw Beauty Talks?
I don't.
Okay. So she's amazing. You guys, you would love each other. So she's incredible. And we, in growing our family, suffered through 2 miscarriages, and you and I really connected. Cause I came to you for like health advice, and like, I just want to like feel human again. And I want to like make sure I'm like treating my body right. So I literally still to this day, Kelly, have a notepad in my drawer of like the things you told me like years later. I still have it. I'll send you a picture of it. It's crazy. Drew actually just saw it the other day and I was like, there it is. And anyways,
so much. I mean,
isn't that, it's so cool though. Literally I was writing down like grams, all these things. Like I was like writing everything down. And so Erin, when I went through my second loss, she like reached out. She had followed me on Instagram. We had connected, and she was like, I just want to like help you through this like grieving process. And she did this incredible visualization exercise with me. And, I actually have, for anyone that gets the book, there's a link that you can get this visualization exercise for free. It is life-changing. I've done it at so many events because it's just game-changing. But anyways, in the exercise, she's like, I want for you to like picture your most like vibrant, healthy, energetic self. Like literally like slide your fingers into her finger slots, your toes into her toe slots. Like, what do you see, hear, feel, all these things? And in that vision, I was wearing a white linen shirt and Madewell jeans. And I remember after the whole exercise was done, I like opened my eyes and she's like, what did you see? And I like looked down and I like recognized like I am in like 3-day-old yoga pants and like a t-shirt from college. Like I'm having these visions of like wanting this like little girl and pancakes and this Persian rug and like happiness. But if I can't even like dress the part of the person that I believe is my most vibrant version of myself, if I can't even buy the jeans or put on the shirt, how do I expect the rest of my life to happen? There are certain things that we absolutely cannot control in this life, but there are a lot of things and a lot of opportunities in our lives where we hold these visions of like someday or like when this happens. And yet we're not willing to like, put on the jeans, so to speak, and like start showing up today. And so there's this quote that this pastor said that has always stuck with me, specifically through our growing our family journey, where it was, sometimes the things like the season of waiting is just as important as what it is that you're waiting for. And I think that so many of us are waiting, and yet we're missing these seasons where we're being called to like show up as who it is that we want to become. Like we're being called to like not waste these waiting seasons, but like use them to do the work. So to sum up the longest answer to the question you asked, when you hold these visions for yourself, you have to be willing to inch even like the smallest progress that no one else on planet Earth would see or acknowledge or like or notice. You have to be willing to clothe yourself with the identity of the person you want to become. And I think I've been willing to do that every step of the way. And now I'm like calling everyone into that because it's not just reserved for me.
It's so important. And it's interesting because like, I see you in the Madewell jeans. I see you in the white.
I'm wearing them today. This is how I show up now.
And you look great, but it's the fact that it's the woo meets the work. Like, yes, it's manifesting yourself in that. You're like, I envision it, I see it, but the work is showing up and putting the clothes on every day. Right.
Yes.
And so that's like a microcosm of what you've created in your business is like, I see this big vision and dream, but like, how do I get there? And your editor nailed it because that's exactly what I see is like, have the big dreams, do the work, but we'll work with boundaries, right? It's boundaries around your personal time and what your priorities are. It's boundaries around how much work you're willing to put in, because no offense, but like, I don't want to be the person.
I'm a lazy entrepreneur.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be the person. You don't either. Like, we don't want to be moms too.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to be the people that are working 24/7, never saying no.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not that person.
This whole hustle culture.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about like day in the life of you, because if you aren't hustling 14 hours a day, and like, how do you get away from hustle culture?
Yeah. I think this is so good. And recently I was like kind of going through the season, because launching a book is, it's a massive undertaking, right? Like, it's like the writing the book is one piece, and then like the releasing it and getting out into the world is like a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
And I say this line in the book, and I'm literally living it in real time, where it says like, we as women need to trust that we can hit the brake pedal and not forget where the gas is. And when I look at the last 4 years of my life, it has been solely devoted first and foremost to being the most incredible mom that I possibly can be. And I'm still there, but I am starting to ease on the gas pedal in terms of career. I am excited. I'm rejuvenated. I'm aligned. When I spoke about that event that I recently spoke at, I was feeling this pull inside of me where I was like, am I in the right place? Should I have said no? Like, I should be home right now. And then Drew sent me this picture of both of the girls watching me on stage while they were eating lunch. And I started bawling, like I could bawl right now, because I was like, they got to see me so alive and vibrant. And the next morning I was home with them making pancakes. And it was like just this reminder of like, no, we can do both. And it's not going to be easy, but like, you can choose what season you're in. Is it hitting the brakes and slowing down and not believing this lie of like, I'm going to lose momentum or become irrelevant, or people are going to forget about me? And can we trust ourselves that like what has gotten us this far will carry us forward? And when we're ready to run, the race is waiting for us. And so it's been this really interesting thing, because I want my life to be ease, like full of ease. Like, I want to wake up and like really think about like, I am so excited about what I'm doing today, whether it is like a neighborhood garage party or like, knocking out 10 podcasts, like whatever that is, I want to like be excited about it. And so it's really interesting to me, because when we think about like, how do we like push back on this hustle culture narrative? How do we do these things? The first part is like getting so honest with where we're starting. Let me explain this. If you were to tell me, hey, Jen, I want you to come over for dinner tonight, and I wasn't honest about like the actual location of where I'm located, my map in the directions given to me would not lead me to you, right? Mm-hmm. And we as a culture are so obsessed with like blueprints, and here's this 5-step process, and here's this way to create a new habit, and all these things, which is so wonderful and powerful, but we've lost the personal aspect of personal development. We're so fixated on development and efficiency and output that we've forgotten, like, who are the actual humans and where are we starting? Where is ground zero, so that the next move we make, the next turn we take is actually moving us towards it. And so hustle culture like promotes this belief of like, always say yes, always do more. Like, you're not doing enough. You've got to keep creating. And I genuinely believe that if we start with, here's where I am, here's what matters to me right now in this season, here's what I value the most, and here's what success feels like to me, not looks like to the world, then we can start working with more ease. We can start trusting ourselves more to know that we don't need somebody else to come give us a big break, that we can create our own big breaks when we're ready. And so it's just this really fascinating idea, because there are absolutely, and I talk about this in the book, there are absolutely seasons of my life where hustle was a requirement, but it was not sustainable and it wasn't meant to be sustained. So even in this season of life where I'm like, I am pushing the gas pedal, I'm a little nervous, I have rest scheduled in. So like, I am taking an entire month off after this book is released and out into the world, where I'm like, yes, I'm going to hustle for the next month. And then I know that there's a finish line in sight. And I think so many of us are going through life just pushing the finish line a little further every time we inch closer, because we're like, I'll rest when, I'll slow down when, I'll change when, and when has never arrived.
Well, you make such a good point. And it's interesting because it's like hustle culture feels a little bit like diet culture. You're either like on or you're off. And there are, and what you talk about, like having a minute of like, yes, there are times and seasons where you need to hustle a little bit. I kind of think about that, like, okay, like you had the holidays, you made lots of homemade, like, I don't know, baked goods and you had a lot of fun. Like
we reset.
Consider it a reset where you're like pulling back, you're taking a break, you're saying it's just not, you can be rejuvenated in those moments of like a reset or a break or a breath, but it is totally unsustainable to say that you're going to be on all the time. And I think when people talk about balance, it's a little bit like toxic balance. It's like toxic positivity where you're like, sorry, there is no such thing as balance. What does balance actually look like in my life? Like it is press on that gas pedal that you're talking about and then find your flip and brake.
Yes.
And then get back on the gas pedal. Like it is like it's too hard because you're physically doing it, especially as a mom. So can we talk about day in the life of you? And even more than day, like I want to know, like, what does like a week or a month look like to create the balance that is not really true balance, but really like planned gas pedal time, planned breaks, and what that looks like day to day. Because I think we just see you and we say, wow, she's with her kids every day. She's posting every day. She has this amazing book she's launching. She's just podcast coming out like you're so consistent that it looks like balance and it looks like it's just so you have created ease, but like pull back the curtain. Like, what does it look like to create that?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I studied the word balance because it just never resonated with me. And I recognize that like when we think about balance, if you actually study the word balance is like a moment in time. It's not meant to be maintained. So like this notion of balance, it's like, think about like if you had scales and you were dropping sand on it and suddenly it's balanced, you just put one more grain of sand, it goes out of whack. It's like literally a moment. It's not meant to be maintained. And so I talk about this idea of blend in the book of like integration. Like, how do I integrate all the things I love into a day? And like, what does that look like? Yeah. And it's been so interesting because at the beginning of this year, so I had a baby at the end of November. And in January, I was like, okay, I have a 6-month runway right now before this book comes out. And I want to feel vibrant. Like my word of the year was just like vibrant. Like I am looking at this as like the longest runway of like, I need energy to do exactly what I want to do. And I have to thank you because of you, I got levels years ago, became an investor just alongside of you. But it's been like a tool for me where I'm like, okay, like I'm the kind of person, and you know this about me, where like when it comes to health, which can we talk about health for a little bit? Yeah. When it comes to health, like you can tell me all of the like normal things and it doesn't hit until I know specifically how my body is impacted by what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So like our loss was such a great teacher for me because it helped me realize like that hustling is causing issues in your body. Your body is literally trying to send you notifications to save you and you're ignoring it. Like there are so many things. And so when I thought about like a day in the life in this season, which is the busiest season I've had in 4 years, I feel so vibrant, but it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. There's a line in the book that says like, success is not chia seed pudding. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. And so it's really interesting. So like, for example, like, let's just dissect this morning. So I woke up before the kids did, because I need like focus time. I have ADHD. I struggle so bad to like get focused and stay focused. And so I got up, and I've never been a morning person, but now I'm so energized and I'm like, let's go, baby. So I was on at like 5 a.m. Then the little one woke up. I nursed her. Drew took her and did a workout with her in her little bouncy chair. I got work done. But I like spent the morning then with my family, then had a stack of interviews, and then I like go back to them. And so it's like, how can we work in a way? And I think the biggest thing is like, how do you actually focus on doing the thing? There's a line in the book that it's like, we're so focused on everything surrounding the actual thing that we're not doing the work that is required to get the result. So, you know, an example of this is like when I started the Gold Digger podcast, had this idea. I literally spent so much time around the logo, the intro song, the format. I never hit record and recorded an actual podcast. I spent so much time on all of the things around it because I wanted it to be perfect. And so in our lives, I feel like when we go to bed at night and we're like, what did I actually achieve today? I was so busy. I was working so hard, but I literally can't put my finger on it. It's because we're not actually focusing on doing the actual things that will get us the results. I have been prioritizing my health and totally going off the deep end on biohacking. So like red light therapy, we actually ran into our neighbors the other day. They're like in their 60s ish. Actually, I don't want to offend them. They're probably 60. And she goes, we've been noticing there's this red light in your house. Are you guys like, is that like a signal for something? And I was like, red light therapy. Yeah, I'm sitting naked in front of it, but nothing else is happening. We got a PMF mat. Like I've been meditating consistently, which has been, I've never meditated in my life. I've meditating so much. I've been, so like today, like this is bone broth. I packed like tuna. I have tuna with like avocado mayo in my bag. I brought protein chips. Like I've just been like, actually for the first time in my life, I think my why is attached to this like energy of like, I just want to get this book out into the world. And so it's like so much stronger. And I think our culture is so, and you get this all the time, is so focused on the what and the how. How are people losing weight? What are they doing? What is the thing? And nobody ever asks the why. And I think it all goes back to the why. If you want the what and the how to work, start with the why. And so a day in the life for me, it is busy and it is full, but it is so intentionally planned with a lot of flexibility involved. And that's how we're working through life right now.
I think you've always done a really good job of saying no.
Yes.
And
boundaries.
you just said with a lot of flexibility. So you had time to get your head right. You had time to be with your family. You had time to show up for this interview and a few others, and you're going to go back to your family. And that flexibility, I mean, you said you have ADHD. And what is so interesting is in probably the past 2 years of hosting this podcast, I can't tell you how many guests have said, I have ADHD or I have ADD. And it's interesting because there's this like self-belief that's like deep inside of these guests like you that is like, I can do it. Yeah. Like it's this weird, like, even though it's this label of like, you can't do it. It's this, it's almost like we don't get in our heads enough to say like, we can't do it. And you're able to be flexible and go from, even though you're like, maybe not be able to hold your attention, but you're able to be flexible in a day.
Oh, it's like I'm nursing a baby 1 minute on a Zoom call the next minute. Yes. It's literally like, I mean, I gave a keynote a few weeks ago with a baby in an ergo in front of a room full of men. Like you can do both. It's not going to be pretty. And there are absolute professions where this makes zero sense. Like you can't show up and do a surgery with a baby in an ergo. Right. However, when you have built a life around what you love and you've been unapologetic in like, if you want me in this season, here's how I'm showing up. Yeah. That's like the beauty of boundaries. There's this line in the book about boundaries that I just love. And I think about it every day. And it's like, boundaries don't keep things and people out of our lives. They keep us in our life. And I think for women, it's like we picture boundaries as like these fences, these gatekeepers around us that are making us miss our big break or like miss out on life. But we don't recognize that like they are truly the bumpers in our life that like keep us straight in alignment down the lane. And so like, yes, boundaries are everything.
Well, I will say for me personally, like watching you have boundaries and even just, I think I asked you to be on the podcast 2 years ago and you were like, love you, Kel, but like not the season, and it's like, it's amazing because there are so many women that I look up to that, you have to weigh, is it worth your time in the moment? And like being in a place now where I'm in a place where I have my courses and I have my protein powder, plus I have my clients, plus I have 2 kids. Like I'm saying no more than ever before. And what you're saying, like boundaries keeping us in our lives, like it is so important to have your vision of like, what are your priorities and like, what is growing your business and what is giving you the flexibility? Because if I said yes to every podcast interview that I was requested, it's like, you say no and put up a boundary. It's as women, we feel guilty that we're letting those people down, that like they're going to be disappointed. In reality, it's like, Iris, I might've been like, bummer, dude. I want Jenna on the podcast, but I have so much flipping respect for the fact that you said no to me and are now showing up now as this like this bright light, vibrant self of like, I have something that I actually want to share with your audience that is going to be useful. And I'm not
Isn't
just
it
taking
wild?
time as like, maybe I'll be on the podcast and get like a few more followers or someone to take
Yeah.
my course. It's like, it's the break. It's,
Mhm.
it's that break you're talking about. Like hit the break, come
Yes.
back with gas, come back with
Yes.
purpose, come back with passion, come back with vibrancy, come back with light. And knowing that you've kept yourself in your boundaries and in like in yourself and in the life that you want to show up here today with so much more to give is like,
It's so cool.
it's really
It's
cool.
crazy too, because like you were by no means the only person I said no to, but one thing that I had to do in my life, and I actually talk about this in the book because I know that like I need bumpers in my life, like, and I need gatekeepers or else I'm prone to say yes to everything because I genuinely want to do everything. Like that's the problem, especially when you have ADHD, you're like, everything sounds amazing. Of course I want to do that. And so, like I had a folder in my Gmail titled, "If I write a book," and I told my team, put anything ever that comes through, any offers, any agents, just pop it in that folder. I don't even want to see it because I'll know when the timing is right. And I didn't open that folder ever in years. And then when I decided to write a book, I was like, there that is. And it's like trusting in the timing of your own life. And it's fascinating too, Cal, because I think for anyone that's listening that struggles with boundaries, one thing that I found that you brought up is that like when you establish a boundary and share that boundary with someone, you are giving them permission to figure out their own boundaries and communicate them. And one thing that I've always done, if you're afraid or you suck at saying no, is that I've like literally made templates for myself because I know that I'll want to say yes because I want to, like I genuinely want to, I just don't have the bandwidth. And so in my template, it's like, hey, Kelly, thank you so much for this incredible invitation. I love you. I love the work you're doing. I love your show. However, I'm going to say no. And I want you to know this. My no is not an indication of you, what I feel about you, or how I feel about this opportunity. It is only a representation of what my priorities are in my life right now. And I've come to realize that every yes is an equal no in my life. And so when I say my family is most important, right now I'm living that out by chasing my kids around the house or whatever. And so just know that I'm always here. I'm cheering you on. And when the time is right, I'll circle back. And like, even just like having a template like that, it like immediately takes away somebody feeling like, oh, she doesn't like me, or like, maybe I'm not doing enough, or like whatever. And so it's funny because I'll send that to people and like, then they'll be like, can I copy and paste this and use this in my life? I'm like, please do. Like, it's life-changing.
It is life-changing. And really what is so important is you're creating the space to really say yes to what you're keeping you in your life and to say yes to the things that are important to you. You get so many opportunities. You have so many people ask you like about coming on their show, coming to speak here, coming to this event. And I'm curious for you, like, what are your priorities and how do you on the regular make sure that you're blending and attaining those goals and having the space to be creative for new goals?
I never say yes in real time, ever. I always say, let me circle back. Let me look at my calendar and circle back. Cause like I said, when I'm with people, a spell is cast over me and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. So now I've caught myself and I'll be like, hey, this sounds awesome. Let me check my calendar and I'll circle back with you. And that buys me enough time to get quiet with myself and to check in and be like, okay, how do I actually feel about that? Like, if I say my values are this, is this opportunity aligned with them? Does it make sense either financially, energetically, or time-based? And so it's like that constant thing. And the other thing that I've really found is that like, I have this deep trust that like, I can build what I'm meant to build. And I feel like for a lot of entrepreneurs, and people that are trying to build their own thing, people paint shiny opportunities and make them feel like it could be your big break. And so you say yes to all of these things. And then while you're doing them or while you're in them or while they're on your calendar, you're like, why did I commit to this? And so I just have had to like put my head down, specifically in the last season I was in, and literally just focus on building my own business. So I did not do any interviews for 4 years. Like I literally said no to like everything. And so I was like, I can only focus on creating my own content that I can control that helps the brand grow. And that's the only bandwidth I have right now. And now that bandwidth is increased. And so it's just, this interesting, but I'm like, don't commit to anything in real time. Take a pause, take a beat, check in with yourself, check your values, and then have really good communication. Cause even like with Drew, it's like, he's a stay-at-home dad. We don't have any outside help. And so like, it's us with the kids. We're together all the time. Somebody the other day, the car mechanic was like, do you guys ever get sick of each other? You're together all the time. And I was like, surprisingly, no, like we really like each other. But we're always all together. But it's like, even now committing to certain things that will take me away from the house for a couple of days. It's like, okay, can we do this? Does this feel right? Will we be okay? And so it's really interesting.
Oh, we have a lot of the similarities in how
the
our
dynamic
structured and the
yes.
dynamic. I know Drew's like got off Instagram and Chris got off Instagram, and it's like, it's different being men who were taught as little boys to like go out and be the breadwinner and like have these big, careers and like whatever it may be. And then we have husbands that are so amazing and are stay-at-home dads. And can we talk about that dynamic? Because I feel that we're always still the mom, right? And we want to be the nurturer, and we want to be like, we made the pancakes, and like, we're here to like do the hair or like read a bedtime story. You like
pick up the outfit.
Yeah. Like whatever it is, like for the girls. I mean, Chris got it figured out with my boys. Like, it's not maybe as fun, whatever the case may be, but like, it is a lot. There's a lot of guilt in pulling yourself away when it is like the two of you and your kids, to know that like, he's the full-time dad, but like, you're the backstop. Like you're there to be like, I'm here if you need to go do that or grab that or do this. And so what does that look like over the last 6 months of like preparing for this tour and like doing these interviews? And like, it's
a lot
quicker on the family, I'm sure.
Yeah. Literally, he just texted me like, are you going to be home to feed Quinn before her next nap? Like, where it's like literally like real time, and I like breastfeed. So it's like, I am either packing a pump if I have a day of interviews, or most of the time when I work from home, he'll just bring her in when I've got to feed her and then like take her away to bring her up for a nap. But it's funny because we were talking the other night and I was like, I feel like I'm like 40% parent, like 40 to 60, and you're like, 90 all the time, but I'm always available. Coco always comes and sits by me. Like in the acknowledgements of my book, I'm like, thank you for literally sitting next to me and making me play Baby Shark in the corner of my computer while I wrote this book. Like, because I've always had this like idea where if we want the blend, like if it's appropriate and she can come in while I'm working, she's invited to. Like, I don't ever want to be like, no, I'm working, you can't come in, And so, it's really interesting. It requires a ton of communication. And I think our biggest struggle right now is like, one, we don't really get a lot of alone time. So it's like, how do we like come home to like ourselves as humans outside of the relationship, outside of parenthood, outside of my career? And then the other struggle I would say is like, how do we get quality time together as partners outside of parenthood? Cause it's like, whoa, those are like really big things that are really easy to like forget, or like in the craziness, like you don't check in enough often. So those are the things that we're struggling with for sure. And just things that we're prioritizing. Like this weekend, I took the girls to like a baby shower. So Drew had some time to himself, and like trying to just prioritize, like, here's what this looks like. But it's really interesting, especially being in the Midwest and me being the breadwinner and him being a stay-at-home dad. Like there are people close to us in our life that like call him a babysitter. And it's like, he's not a babysitter, he's a parent, and he's an incredible parent. Like, do not belittle his life's work in that way. And so it takes a very confident person. I don't care if you're a man or a woman or however you identify as a stay-at-home parent or caretaker, like that takes a lot of confidence to step into that position boldly and to understand the impact it has. And I would say for me, something that's been so helpful is like recognizing that my work gets noticed, seen, applauded all of the time, but like his work, I'm the only one who sees it. Like, and so for me, it's been this daily practice of like, what can I acknowledge him for? What can I notice? Like, oh, I noticed you brought the garbage out. Thank you so much for doing that. Or I noticed that you like food prepped. Like, I appreciate it so much. And like, just making sure that like that same level of recognition is coming in our life. So it's just, this constant like back and forth. It's a lot of handoffs. I feel like having Quinn, like I do so much of my work where it's just her and I. So Drew and Coco can like go on an adventure. And I'm like, oh, one kid is so easy now. Like this is a breeze. And so, yeah, it's really fascinating how your perspective shifts too. Has it been the same for you, Kel?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because you just said like, Drew's bringing Quinn in for like nursing and you're on that nursing schedule. And we finally are down to like 2 feeds a day. And I let baby T nurse, like kind of like Bash was on the schedule and baby T is like, well, pony up to the bar whenever you want. Just a little bit hectic. But he's finally now like just when he wakes up and when he goes to bed. And it's interesting because it's like, they don't want to interrupt your work. But they also don't want like to defrost a bottle that you took time pumping if like you can feed them real quick. And it's like, it's constant communication. It's constant juggling. It is, you have to be able to blend. If you're working from home, you're an entrepreneur and you're the mom and you're breastfeeding. Like, it's like layer of, I think about the dads or who just, get back from paternity. They hop in their car, they drive to their office, they do their work and they come home. Like the simplicity of that. But like, I don't want that simplicity. Like I want,
and we never get to not be like, I've never really thought of like the mental load of motherhood where it's like, even here, you're like thinking about like, what is their schedule? Do they have dinner? What do they need? Like all these things. And I think that like, that is like how human race has survived, is that women think in that way, but like none of my male colleagues have to think about those things, And so it's like, crazy when I went to LA to do like a bunch of interviews and I'm like trying to figure out like, when am I going to pump? How am I going to store this milk? How am I going to get the milk home? Like, I was like up watching Coco's baby monitor at 3 a.m. because she was transitioning to a toddler bed and having night terrors. And like, I'm like nursing her, like over the phone, like telling her, like, smell the flowers, blow out the candles, like helping her breathe. And I'm like, no male colleague do I know, shows up for a day of in-person interviews after being up all night, either like pumping or like helping their child to sleep. Like that's not the expectation. But I also wouldn't change it for the world. It's fascinating because it's like people like you and I, we want to do it all. And there's a line in the book that's like, yes, you can have it all, but it's up to you to decide what it all means. And I think that's like where a lot of people get stuck.
Definitely. And you like your life has, and showing it online and like now really sharing it in the book and the how-tos of it it's interesting because it's like, you can't say yes to everything. All of that quote needs to be like what you decide purposefully is the most important things to you. And as your seasons of life change, it's like, now the book is an important part of your life and you do want to share it with the world and you do need to press the gas pedal. And so what else, who's picking up the slack for you and who's supporting you to get through it? And then on top of all that, which I think we haven't even touched on, which is such an important part of the book, is like, how are you feeling personally in this process? Because how you're showing up in all of it all, if you will, depends on how you feel. How you feel really, which it's such a simple title of the book, but the really part, as you talk about in the beginning, it's the important part. It's what takes it from being like, yeah, it's cool. Like the weather's great. The job's fine. Like the kids are great. It's silly. They're crazy. To like, no, man, like, are you ready for this? Are you ready to carry this? Like, I'll actually tell you, my sisters and I call it having DMCs, deep, meaningful conversations, because there's people that you talk about too. It's like, you just jump right into like, don't give me the BS. Don't glaze over it. Like,
where are you at?
20 minutes, where are we at?
Yeah.
So I guess to put it on you, like, how do you suggest people check in with themselves? And when did you start checking in with yourself and finding out how are you really to move through some of the self-limiting beliefs you had?
Yeah. I think I've always been good at it, which is not helpful in the way of like, and here you go. But I walk through how to come back to yourself. But I feel like I've always been one of those people that like has like this inner knowing. Like I can feel when something feels out of alignment, or like I can feel like when I meet someone and I'm like, I don't know if I like that person. Like I've always like had this. And I think I've had to really like honor that and like listen to it. And I was talking to one of my friends, and like she is just like this incredible workhorse. Like this woman can work like 100-hour weeks, like no problem. And she was so burnt out. And I said, it's almost like you need to do like a couch to 5K, but in reverse. Like you are running a 5K in your life every single day, metaphorically. How do you learn how to go back to the couch? How do you learn to just sit and be still? And I think a lot of times when we look at the people who are so like efficient and their output is so impressive, they're usually running from something. I tell this story in the book about how I used to hate shavasana at the end of yoga because I literally like didn't feel like I earned the right to lay down flat on the ground for 5 minutes. Like I didn't understand that like rest does not have to be earned, and like it is a birthright and it's something that is required. And I think that so many of us are so used to running the 5K that like even the thought of like going to the bathroom without bringing your cell phone with makes people itchy, because we like literally just fill any white space in our lives with scrolling and with, you know, creating and like all these things. And it's like, we don't even know how to be. And I mentioned earlier, like meditating, like I used to be someone who was like, I can't meditate because I thought that like meditating was like having an empty mind. Like I just thought like my brain is too busy. I operate at a higher level, like whatever. When somebody explained like meditating is just literally noticing your thoughts, like having this awareness, like just paying attention, it woke me up to like, how are we missing like our own internal cues that are guiding us through life, that are meant to guide us through life, that we ignore? We ignore them because we adopt everyone else's like philosophies and theologies and all these, you know, blueprints and roadmaps and how-tos and step-by-steps. Those have a place. There's this line where it's like, it's the woo meets the work. It's the Google and the gut. It's the heart and the hustle. And it's like, how do we take, you know, these tips and things from people who have gone before us, but how do we also combine it with like us, who we are, what we know to be true about ourselves, what we know is true about how we show up or how we make progress or how we set goals. And so I think that when we think about like, how do we come home to ourselves? Like, how do we start to trust ourselves? We have to almost think about like a dial on a stereo, and like, how do we turn down the world's noise of telling us what we should be doing and what looks successful and what's important to society and this culture? And how do we like turn up the dial on our inner knowing, like that little gut, those pings, those little notifications of like, this isn't right, or like, this doesn't feel good, or maybe that isn't the right time for you. And so it's funny because it's like being a mom of daughters, especially my 3.5-year-old, like she like doesn't care what people think. And like, she'll like run around naked singing Frozen. And like, she like, and she has that. And I'm like, when did we lose that? And how do we find it again? And so many people will ask us like, if you could talk to your 10-year-old self, what would you tell them? And I'm like, if your 10-year-old self could talk to you, what would they tell you? What would they be sad to know that you no longer do? What would they be like horrified to know that like you don't trust about yourself? Like, and so there's all those kinds of stories, but I really think it's like the couch to 5K, but in reverse. How do we just start to slow down? What, maybe it's like a minute for you. Maybe it's before you enter a threshold of a room, you like check your own energy. Maybe it's like the moments before you fall asleep, you like check in with yourself. Maybe it's downloading a meditation app. Maybe it's going to the bathroom. Maybe it's in your car where you can be quiet. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you like get home and it's like that moment before you cross the threshold into your house where you just sit in your car and it's quiet for a hot minute, like maybe it's that. But I just think that we've got to like start inviting that and like start pushing through the unease of stillness and be honest with ourselves. Because I think our greatest fear is, if we're honest with ourselves and the answer is that I'm not okay, then I'm going to have to do something about it.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't feel like we have the tools to do something about it. But if you're not listening, you just,
You're missing
on the other side? Yeah. What's on the other side of like working through that stuff and getting in alignment? It's ease. It's that easy to talk about. It's like flow. I always think of it like a vortex. Like when someone's in the flow state, and I see it online, like with certain people, where I'm like, they stepped into who they always were, and they're saying yes to the things that they're really passionate about, really good at, and can make a career. It's like this trifecta that like it's like fire, and they just suck down that vortex, and it's
undeniable
growth and so apparent to see. And that's what you like. It's almost like you're like the Sonic Hedgehog. Like I saw you rolling, and then it's like you super speed and you just went zoom.
Yeah.
And it's
I feel it.
It's
so good.
It's really special to watch. And it's and I think, you know, for other people out there listening and following along or taking your courses or reading your book, it's looking at that and saying like, how are you really? And how do you create that time? And I mean, I used to say that I was bad at meditating too, and that I hated it. And then I found breath work, and it was that I like just feel like I need an active process to get in tune with like what it is that I'm thinking and what is ultimately bigger than myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's amazing. Isn't it cool? Look at us growing and evolving and changing.
This book is so amazing, Jenna. I feel like I have to ask you the question that I ask some guests on the end of this podcast, the Body Love podcast, because I know that you have a lot of experience in it, and that you are helping people do the same. Is what does body love mean to you?
Mm-hmm. It means not trying to separate my heart and mind and soul from the vessel it's in. And like recognizing that like I am me, all of me, and my body is my teammate. It's not my opponent, and it never has been. And so the more that I can be at home in my own skin, we call it like our personality Tupperware, our meat suit, perhaps. The more that I can like learn to love those pieces of me, the more that I can move through life in a way that invites other people to love themselves. And so, yeah, it absolutely has been a journey. It's talked about really a lot in the book. Because I really believe that like there's this line, the way that we show up to fight our battles is directly linked to the type of warrior we believe we are. And I think a lot of us, when it comes to body love and loving ourselves, we don't believe that we're a warrior worthy of the fight. And I think that we are. And I think that there's just so much opportunity for us to reframe how we look at our bodies and how we treat them and how we feel them and how we move them. And I'm still on that journey. But I'm loving it. And I've never honestly, truly felt better. It's wild.
It's really beautiful to see. I think, you know, when I look at 10 years of working with clients, and it's like the what and the how. A lot of times when I work with clients is like, I have this, I need to look like this. How do I get there? And it is vanity first, and maybe whatever interviews are happening in magazines, the rag mags or whatever they call them, or it's like, it isn't so vanity based. It's like, I wanted to feel better or whatever, but like, it's interesting because it's like the clients who really truly love their bodies are the ones who think of it as a vessel, that do these amazing things like birth babies and breastfeed and stand up on stages with ergos on and take hikes in their neighborhood, or like get on bike rides and like show up and make family meals and follow their passions and believe in themselves. And they truly are using it as a vessel. And then it isn't really ever about the scale. Like it is like, wow, this thing just got me through so many amazing, special life moments and memories. And when I think about who I follow online, you're the best one doing it.
Thank you. I receive that.
Really like just showing up for yourself and teaching people how to do it too. So thank you for everything you put in the world.
A part of my journey. There are so many things about you in my life. Your protein powder, if anyone hasn't gotten it, it's amazing. Coco loves it. She'll ask to have like a bowl of powder and just put a little bit of milk in it, which I'm like, great. Your cookbooks are in our house. We have invested in many of the products you share about because of you. And my little notepad that reminds me of how far we've come, which is so beautiful. So just thank you for being a massive part of my journey throughout all of this and so much more. I love doing life alongside of you.
Same, sister. It's been really, really awesome. And I'm so happy to be able to support you. All right. Where can people find you? Where can they follow along? Where can they buy this amazing book?
All the
All in
things.
the show notes.
You can find me everywhere. I am easy to find at Jenna Kutcher. JennaKutcher.com is the hub of all of the things. The Goal Digger podcast. If you like this show, you'll probably love Goal Digger. It's a little bit more strategy based, but really powerful women and awesome tactical tips. And the book, How Are You Really, is anywhere books are sold. It is released June 28th. And you can also go to howareyourreallybook.com. And we have some really fun bonuses to connect you with as a thank you for ordering or pre-ordering.
All right. We'll put links to all of it in the show, Jenna. You're the best. I'm so excited for you. I'm going to manifest for you. It's going to be a New York Times bestseller.
Hell yeah. Let's do it.